Everyone, welcome to this morning session. I'm going to wait another minute or two just so we have more attendees joining. I see there's a lot of people still joining. So we're going to start in the next 2 to 3 minutes. So bear with us, we're about to kick off. Right, once again, good morning. Thanks for joining us on this Monday morning. This morning's webinar is going to be all about building a secure and compliant cloud landing zone. So we've got a great set of speakers with us today that's going to take us through this morning's session. And I really believe that you will find a lot of value in what we're going to present this morning. So we've got a great lineup of speakers. I want to first of all welcome all of our customers with us this morning as we go and we take you through this morning session. So I want to just quickly, before I start and kick off, we've got a couple of areas. So if you have any questions that you want to ask, you can paste it in the Q&A session and ask the questions there. And the team will answer it as we go through this morning. So without any further ado, I'm going to hand over to our first keynote for the morning. Hendrik Fourie is one of the senior product managers at Blue Turtle. So Hendrik, over to you for your session this morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Stefan. Thank you, folks, for joining us. To give you a bit of a background, I've been in IT since before 2000. Focused purely on IT security since 2006, and I have quite a strong technical background. Those of you who know me will know that I'm quite passionate about this field. Yes, so thank you very much for joining us. So the reason why we're here is because we all have a shared responsibility to secure our and our customers' digital estates. This is quite a challenge. So how do we propose to do this? Number one, stay informed. Knowledge is power. Number two, we suggest that you assess the risk, make sure that you fully understand the risk, and then put controls in place so that we mitigate those primary risks. Our aim is to make sure that you get the best value for the money you spend on IT security. So in order to do this, let me just see. Could you just pop the slide to the next one, please? It's not working on my side.
Yeah, hang on, I'm just gonna, for some reason it's not going forward on my slide either. Hang on 1 second.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so while we're talking on this, as you can see, technology also sometimes brings its own challenges. Our challenges are not just the adversaries out there, but also the tech we employ ourselves. I'm just waiting for the slide deck to catch up. So while we're talking about this, staying informed, there are many reports out there on the web. Many of these reports include people's opinions, as well as some data. Some of the other reports are more valuable in my mind. Reports that handle real breaches, investigate real breaches that took place both in South Africa and in the rest of the world in the last year, so that we've got real data that we can talk to, and where we can see where these risks are. So if we look at the threat landscape in South Africa, just in the last 6 months, you can see that there's been plenty of breaches. Breaches of both data, but also breaches of people's systems. So when we see a breach that stops a company from working like it did Stefanutti stocks in August, that to us is still a data breach. That is still an interruption of your business processes, and that's still a very costly affair. But these breaches go far and wild. We've seen Experian very lately. Razor data breach. So now they're attacking the gamers as well. Momentum Metropolitan, just 2 months ago. Postbank in June. Life Healthcare in June. And the list goes on, people. The risks are real, and South Africa is now being breached to a next extent. So as I said, in order to look at these breaches, I like looking at real data. If we go on to the next slide, you will see that I used the Ponemon cost of a data breach report to base this information on. Now, before we go through to that, please note that some of the information on these reports is quite scary. Our aim is not to scare you. Our aim is to prepare you. The risk is real. So let's look at this risk. The average cost of a data breach, according to the Ponemon report, rose to 72.5 million rand in the last year. Now, if you follow the report, last year it was around 40 million rand. And that's just the average cost. If you look at the list there, you'll see that healthcare is way above average, pharmaceutical way above average, and financial also way above average. So these are the real amounts that South African people, you'll see this is in rands, that South African people had to pay over the last year. And this is without a single fine from Pansi Tlakula and the information regulator team. On the next slide, you will see what is being attacked. So now we know that we are being attacked. We know that there's a huge cost involved in this. If you look at these reports, you'll also see that the cost for smaller companies tends to be bigger, number one. Number two, there's a huge divide between those companies who have employed automated security systems like EDR, artificial intelligence, machine learning, also companies who have an incident response team. Their cost of a data breach is way less than companies who do not. Within this report, we'll also see that in the last year, the attack surface looked very much like this. Compromised credentials, 19% of the problem of real attacks. Compromised credentials means that as soon as they get your username and password from your local machine, from the server, that the hackers start living off the land. They act and look and feel to our IT security systems like a legitimate user. So once they've done this, once they've compromised credentials, our chances of catching them becomes really small. Now, in terms of these compromised credentials, you'll also note on these reports that around 49% of the breaches contained malware. In 51% of the cases in last year, your traditional antivirus system would not have caught this. When it's a fileless attack, we need something more. It's a hands-on keyboard attack. So in order to fight that first 19% of compromised credentials, we need a bit of advanced security. The next 19%, cloud misconfiguration. So more and more people are using cloud these days. With COVID-19 and work from home, we see this growing tremendously, and the attackers know this. So between us sitting with our laptop at home behind mostly an ISP provided security system, if we can call it that, a firewall. For those sitting behind this ISP provided firewall, compromised credentials is a big risk because we cannot protect that home PC the same way that we protect the servers on our network. So whether you are looking at working from home, working on site in your office, cloud workloads, or hybrid workloads, these risks are real for all of us. After cloud misconfiguration vulnerabilities, we've all known this. We know this all along. If we do not patch, we run into problems. But we also know that sometimes patching is the problem. Patching takes long, and these patch cycles take long. We suggest look at something that could shorten that time period, that could take the risk of my next patch cycle is 60 days from now or 30 days from now, and bring it right down to a few days. You'll see that within the Trend Micro product set, they're brilliant tech that will look at this portion for you. Then also phishing, we know that's been a big thing. And what they're doing these days is using music. So all those artists like Billie Eilish and those kind of people, as soon as they nominated for a Grammy, the hackers start injecting code in all of those videos and music videos and songs, so that compromises our systems. And then obviously, social engineering, always a big problem, and business email, also a big problem in South Africa and worldwide. Please move to the next slide. So, folks, this was just one of the reports we use, and as Blue Turtle, we've got elite partnerships with many vendors and some people who just provide IT security intelligence to the market. Please go and have a look at the reports that's out there, the reports on the public domain, reports like the Verizon Data Breach Investigation Report, threat landscape reports for South Africa, predictive reports from the big vendors who've been around for many, many years, who know what they're talking about in this industry. And then things like Interpol sites. For those of you who go out and look at these things, you'll see that Interpol raised a warning less than 2 months ago, saying that medical and pharmaceutical manufacturing companies will be attacked. That is what they see on the dark web. That is what they see people talking about. So please use these reports. We can only share the reports on this forum that's in the public domain. Blue Turtle has access to some reports that are highly confidential, and we also have access to reports that could be tailor-made specifically for your organization or your industry. If you do not have a way of getting hold of the information you need to be able to properly protect yourself, please get a hold of your Blue Turtle representative or myself, and we will gladly set up a one-on-one session with you so that we can come help you and at least give you information that will allow you to protect yourself. With that, any questions from anyone, please, folks? Okay, if there are no questions, then we can also handle questions later on in the session. Thank you very much for your time. Stefan, back to you, sir.
Thank you, Hendrik. As I said earlier, if there's any questions, please post them in the Q&A section so we can answer those as needed. So with that, I'm going to hand over to our next speaker, well-known person in security, Mr. Ian Keller. Ian is a customer, he's a CISO himself. So it's also good from our perspective to hear what's going on out there. And over to you, Ian. Thank you.
There we go. Audio's on, yeah? Okay. Was that me or you that went on? Anyway, just a quick, I just have to do this. There's a quick rider that I want to just put out here so that the information I'm presenting is derived from my own personal experience and through global engagement with my peers. It does not reflect in any shape or form on my employees, nor does it reflect on their cloud journey. Okay, the views and opinions expressed are purely my own. Also, I've got a sense of humor, so I'm just putting it out there. So we all know that this whole cloud thing is taking over, and that's largely due to COVID. That's sort of ramping everything up for us. But everybody's expecting this journey to be a easy process. Everybody wants this happy cloud scenario that we've got here, and it doesn't always turn out this way, because it's sort of a trivial matter to go to cloud, right? All you do is you find out there's a problem. You go Google, I've got this coding problem, whatever it is. You find the solution that says, oh, it's going to cost you X amount of dollars a month. You swipe your corporate credit card, and there you go. I mean, the problem solved. You're off. You're doing what you're supposed to be doing. And that's exactly when we start getting to the problem areas. I don't think I've got control over the slides. Do I? Stefan? Yes, I do. And why did it go out of presentation mode? There we go. Looks like it's working now. All right, so we wind up with this. We wind up with this beautiful storm cloud, and everything's going horribly wrong, and everybody's ticked off because what we decided or what we planned didn't turn out that way. Because we all now sit with this fantastic idea of we got our head up and we got our head in the cloud, and we're stuck with a lot of shadow IT and a lot of shadow cloud. Okay, so but why is this an issue? I mean, why should we worry about all this no control over cloud? I mean, it's such an easy, trivial thing to do. But this is where the issues start. So if we look at this, when you go do your own thing and you don't follow the right corporate governance and so on, you wind up with an instance of work that is not strategically aligned to your business. So you might be doing something and the business has got another direction that you're going into, and you're just sort of adding to complexity. Then there is probably one of the biggest issues is the fact that the configuration of your cloud is a very serious thing. And if you mess up on those building blocks, the chance of you sitting with an insecure or unstable cloud platform is really, I want to say it's more than a possibility. I always want to say it's a certainty, because there's a lot of finicky stuff that you need to configure within your cloud instance to make sure that it works right. And then, of course, there's that big legal and regulatory compliance framework that we all now need to be compliant to. We've got GDPR, we've got POPI, we've got HIPAA, we've got, well, it all depends on where your where you're transacting, which geographical area. But you know, it's if you don't do that, you wind up like this. You know, so this is us. This is the CISOs and the security guys and so on. Once we've gone through this whole realization that, oops, somebody has spun up a new cloud instance, and we now have to figure out how all of these things fit together and how we're going to secure it. And yeah, you can see you can see what the impact is, the net impact. Yeah. Okay, so the security risks. Hendrik sort of touched on a lot of these things, but why should there be security risks? I mean, let's be honest. Are we going to the cloud? It's not like we're doing anything strange. I mean, it's been there. We have got we've got all of this stuff sorted out in our data centers. So why should we worry about it? Well, the simple fact of the matter is that your cloud provider they provide you a platform. They do not provide you with a secure environment. All they do is they give you the platform to operate on. It is still your responsibility to ensure that you're securing that platform within your risk appetite. So things like your due diligences. Have you made sure that your cloud data provider is actually storing your data in a geographical area you're allowed to store it in? Are people abusing your cloud instances? People abuse your corporate infrastructure inside the business. Otherwise, a lot of us would be unemployed. So why wouldn't they do it in the cloud? How are you handling the insider threat? How are you handling hacking? How are you handling probably the biggest failure of all, your identity management platforms? You know, if you're doing provisioning of identities, which all of us do, on your local infrastructure, you're going to sit with the same complexity of doing it on the cloud. And for some reason, now that's the type of stuff that people brush over. They don't give it the there you go. So that's what happens when you don't have enough coffee. They don't give it the attention it deserves. So, so what now? What do we do now? Okay, and this is where the wheels come off. Well, the wheels come off for me because you know, being serious is a fantastic thing, but you can only be serious that long, and then after that, it's not fun anymore. So here we go. A little bit of a little bit of humor coming in here as well. So yeah, not all hope is lost. If you've gone down this road, it's still not the end of the world. There's still things we can do. You see, because we've got this thing called the super cat, and super cat can come to the rescue and sort you out. So what does super cat say? The first thing is, and this is where the rubber hits the road, you don't go down this journey alone. You just can't. You can do it. You're going to wind up with that first storm cloud. You're probably going to wind up unemployed because you're going to be spending a lot of money and you're not going to get the value that you think you're going to realize. So from that point of view, find your partners, partner up with Blue Turtle, make sure you've got the Trend micro technologies in place. And yes, I'm punting Trend because I actively use it in my environments and I know what it's capable of delivering. So make sure you've got the right partners, people that you trust. And if you look at the crew here, it's guys you can really rely on when the chips are down. Make sure that you've got your right levels of support in place, because there's a lot of, it's not as cheap as people think. I mean, we wish it was, but the costs can really, really hammer you. You guys can read through the list. I mean, it's normal stuff we all know, but I just want to share a nugget with you. I spoke to one of my colleagues and one of my peers a little while ago, and we were talking about, you know, this going to the cloud, you think you're going to know what's going on. And he had to have an exceptionally uncomfortable chat with his CFO like a month into the new financial year because he blew his entire IT OpEx budget in 1 month on cloud. One of his guys spun up a bunch of stuff and forgot that they spun it up because they wanted to take a look. And when the bill came at the end of the month, it sort of wrecked them. So part of this journey is to make sure that you've got those controls in place. And don't for one moment think that the stuff that you do in the cloud is devoid of the regulations and governance that you apply in your proper data centers or your traditional on-prem. You have to go through the processes of governance. You have to ask permission to put these things on. You have to actually have control of the end date. You can't spin something up without the end date. because it's gonna cost you over the long run. And then the last bullet point there is to update your IT management processes. It sounds stupid. It sounds like something that it should be taken for granted, but it's not. You will be surprised when you go and you take a look at an organization's processes and their documentation that's supposed to support them in a BCM and a DR environment, and it still reflects to technology that is like FORP that's been gone for 4 years. You know, you cannot do any journey without making sure that your documentation stay alive. And on that point, if you've got what I call POTS, plans on the shelves, policies on the shelves, processes on the shelves, the stuff that you take off when internal, are there any internal auditors on here? Hope not. When internal audit shows up, you brush them off and you go like, yeah, I've got the policy, so you can give me the tick mark and the plan goes back. If you do that, you're wrong. You need to make sure that your processes stay live and relevant to what you're doing. Okay, now here comes a bit that I'm really passionate about. When we look at this whole thing, and it's part of the evolution of where we are, what's going on, and indicative of where South Africa is in the CISO environment and so on, is the first one here is your contracting. How many of you actually, that are not legal, review your IT contracts, the contracts that have got an impact on IT? I know from experience that not a lot of people do it, and not a lot of companies, because CISOs aren't legal fundis. We don't understand legal speak. And we need to do that. I personally review contracts on a daily basis for clauses that's in there. And you'll be actually shocked to see the amount of times that you sign away your company's assets without actually realizing it. The CISOs, the IT operations guys, your leadership teams within business and within IT need to go through that contract with a fine-tooth comb and understand exactly what it is that you are agreeing to while moving to the cloud, because there's a lot of things that you need to do. You need to make sure that you have got clearly defined roles, responsibilities, and accountabilities. Who's accountable for what and when? When in your cloud journey, you've got a specifically difficult process, because part of your work is done by your service provider. So let's pick on Azure for a second. They will provide you the base platform. They will make sure that it is there, and they will do stuff up to a point. And that point is clearly defined in the contract. So if you don't have the contract knowledge, you're not going to be able to assign your accountabilities, which then starts this whole snowball effect of, I don't want to call it failure, but process towards failure. And if you Google it, there's this beautiful little risk slide that shows where your responsibilities start, where it's a blended responsibility, and where those responsibilities end. And it's very important that you understand that. Then another one, I mean, business and IT alignment. Your technology leadership and your business leadership there needs to be synergies between these two. Now, either you've got your own native skill that you can do that translation between business requirements and IT's responsibilities to deliver. And if not, again, your partner can play a big role in this to help you understand exactly what it is that business needs, because they don't do IT speak, and we, by large, don't do business speak. But we need to get to a point where you understand what businesses want. Because if you think about it, and it's been true since forever, IT is an enabler to business, not a dictator to business. Even from a security point of view, we enable business, we advise business, we can't dictate to them, because we're not the ones who own the risk. Your board owns the risk. Your CEO, your CFO, your managed directors, your executive directors, they own the risk. If they want to accept it, it's not your place to tell them no. You advise them. They want to accept it, it's their business. But you need to understand how to articulate those risks. You need to understand why they're taking those risks and how you can go about enabling them to meet the business imperatives. What else is there? Oh, I love this one. Vendor relationship management. Now, I'm not talking about from a procurement point of view, where they sit and then they go, okay, fine, I want 12 of this and 20 of that, and. I'm talking about the vendor relationship management between your operational people and your providers. It doesn't help that only procurement's got this relationship, because when the chips are down and something goes wrong, who are you going to call? You're not going to call procurement. You need to phone a guru on whatever the platform is that you're spinning up. And if you don't have that relationship, it means that your downtime becomes, or your potential downtime becomes so much more. Again, your partner network, your trusted advisors outside of your business, they play a pivotal role to ensure that when something goes wrong, you have got an escalation path to get to a quick resolution. Now, I'm sort of a pessimist in some of these things, and I firmly believe that the big companies, the guys who pay the top dollar, they are the guys who get the quickest responses, the quickest service, because they can pay for all the additional platinum, diamond, or whatever classes of service, where your small, medium enterprises, they don't have those legs. So your partner has got that ability because they control a big slice of the cloud provider's estate through their contracts. So you can leverage off those relationships to be able to get to that problem resolution and getting a response through. Okay, again, everything I've been talking about, partnerships. You need to have a trusted advisor, not just somebody that's going to come to you and say, listen, okay, here's your invoice, sign, off I go. You need somebody that's going to sit with you and walk with you all the way through this process and deliver to you that, well, not to you or with, they're going to be delivering with you on your commitment that you made to the investment committee to say that you are going to be bringing in X amount of ROI and it's going to be quantified in the following ways. And this is how we're going to get to that point. That's the partnerships that we're talking about. And it is a big deal. I can say that I've had a long-standing relationship with the Blue Turtle team, with the Trend team, and I shamelessly punt them, and I'm not even, I'm not ashamed of punting them, because what you get out of it at the end of the day is exactly what you need. You can trust the guys to deliver on what their promises are. The stuff that they put into the blurbs are the stuff that you actually want to believe, and you can. So it becomes important. So please just make sure that whoever you partner with and whoever that journey is, it is people that you can actually rely on when the chips are down. Because, you know, it's, everybody's got friends when you've got money. It's when you don't have money that you actually find out who your real friends are. And my last one, again, back to partnerships. It's a journey, like everything in life. If you're going to on holiday, you don't want to go alone. You want to share it with somebody. When you're going to cloud, you don't want to do it alone, because it's shared reward. I mean, that's my dog. Sorry. So you've got shared reward, and it's always nice at the end of the day when you've delivered this situation or solution to your business. It's successful, it's working. You can go back to them and say the risks are adequately managed. You can give them a level of assurance that you've done exactly what you said you were going to be doing. You've delivered on that. And it's nice to be able to sit there with your partner at the end of the day. And I'm not talking partner as in partner, I'm talking as in business. And sit down, have a glass of wine and cheers and go like, job well done. With that, I think I'm going to end off. I've been saying quite a lot, so I thank you. And back to you, Stefan.
Thanks, Ian. Much appreciated. Let me just check if there's any questions. No, so far, no questions as yet. So let me just move to the next slide. So with that, I'm going to introduce our new speaker, the man from down under, out of Australia, in Sydney to be specific. So Liam joins us from the Trend office in Australia. Now, the nice thing is that Liam looks after the cloud conformity solution and he looks after it from a quite a wide perspective. So Africa, and also quite big territory that he looks after. And he's also been leading the commercial team for the last 24 months. So without further ado, over to the man from down under. Liam, over to you, my friend.
Stefan, thank you, mate. And yeah, it's good to be here. I wasn't sure if you were going to try and pronounce my surname there, but I think it was good that you didn't. Let me just share screen here, guys, and I'll run you through a bit of an overview of the conformity solution. So, guys, so like I said, it's good to be here today, and thanks for inviting me. A little bit of background. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is Trend Micro's, as was said there, Cloud One Conformity solution. Essentially what it is, and what you guys can see on screen there, is it's a public cloud infrastructure, security compliance and governance SaaS solution, alternatively also known as a cloud security posture management solution, or CSPM tools. So for any Gartner fans on the line, if you read around CSPM technology, this is exactly what they're talking about. I'm going to run you through a high-level demo of the platform. I wanted to make it quite practical so you guys can see what value this type of solution provides, and also how our customers are actually using this in the real world. Now, in terms of that main value, essentially the tagline for the value would probably be it's around de-risking customers' investment in public cloud. So we know that public cloud environments change continuously, whether that's existing services or new services coming out. So that rate of change and needing to keep up with that is obviously very, very difficult. So where this type of capability and solution comes in is it provides that automated, continuous and essentially real-time visibility of that entire public cloud estate. It highlights things like non-compliant workloads, security gaps and risks, any configuration drift that's happening in the environment, and any deviation from best practice. And as we said, that's very much in an automated fashion. And what we can see on the screen here, I'll walk you through how some of this is playing out already. So the first thing you'll notice is we've got all of those accounts or subscriptions in the tool. So whether you're an organization with an Azure only footprint, whether you've got a multi-cloud environment, we're going to give you that complete end-to-end visibility of the entire estate in that single dashboard. We're also pulling through all those native tools as well. So again, this is really about having that central repository or central dashboard for all of the information and all of the alerts and all the risks that are currently sitting in that multi-cloud estate. Now, a couple of other things that we can see here. So we can see the overall compliance score. So again, if you've got that multi-cloud Azure AWS environment, we're providing controls and checks across over 90 different services across the cloud providers and over 700 different rules. And we're adding to this at a cadence of around every 2 weeks. In addition to that, we can start to see the risk level as well. So what becomes really powerful about this tool, and again, this is where that sort of, I guess the knowledge element starts to come in terms of training and upskilling. We start to provide the risk level classification for all of those misconfigurations and non-compliant workloads that are currently sitting in the environment. So we're actually telling you what things you should focus on and why, as well as providing that initial initial visibility play. I'll dive into a few of these in a moment to contextualize some of that, but as we scroll through the dashboard, one of the things I wanted to point out here is really how we're seeing organizations start to gamify this tool in order to improve the overall compliance score and security posture of the accounts. So you can see we've got different accounts. So if you've got different groups within the organization who own different sets of accounts, you can start to compare them in terms of, well, how well are they doing against one another? Where are the biggest risks? And again, we've got that color coding to identify those risks. And all of these allow for you to click in to go and audit and understand really what's happening in the environment. In addition to that, as I mentioned earlier, Conformity is also doing this in near real time. So as soon as an incident or a misconfiguration occurs in the environment, Conformity is going to be capturing that and bringing it through to this dashboard. It's also a lot more extensible, where we're also pulling those alerts through into platforms and communication tools outside of this. And I'll show you how we do that with ease in a moment. And just as we scroll through, Again, what's really cool about this solution is we are a security and compliance tool first, but we're also providing additional value here in terms of what are our operational levers. We can see whether we've built scalable infrastructure, whether we've built resilient infrastructure, whether we're spending too much on our infrastructure. You can see we can start to dive into these different components here. And another really powerful piece we can see here is the global view. So I think it was Ian was mentioning earlier around data classification and ensuring that the assets that we host are sitting in the right region. So this doesn't always happen when we use the cloud, and often it's misunderstood that stuff can be spun up in different regions, particularly if we talk about default services that automatically get spun up in other regions. But what we can see here, we can see in Cape Town, what are our risks that are currently sitting there today? And then importantly, if we're expecting to see all of our infrastructure sitting in Cape Town, we can start to analyze other regions as well. And this is going to be important when we're talking about things like data sovereignty and GDPR, which was obviously mentioned. Now, what I'm going to do now, guys, is just dive into, well, what does this actually mean and how does it play out? So what's really powerful about this solution is it literally takes 5 minutes to get started. I'll provide you a bit of a takeaway at the end of the demonstration. But as you can see here, we're simply going to start to select what subscriptions we want to add on. And once we go through this process, there's no agent installed. This is based on role-based access. So Conformity will have cross-account access to your organization's metadata, so we can scan for any misconfigurations that are sitting in the environment. What that means is we can't see any data or any applications that are attached to any services. So it's essentially a risk-free deployment because we don't have that level of visibility there. Now let's start to dive into some of these things and understand what are we really looking at here. So this is where customers tend to start. So they'll onboard an account and they'll go, okay, we've got a bunch of potential risks sitting here. So let's have a look at those. So here we can see we've currently got 2 failures. So the rule is secure transfer for Azure storage account. If you don't know what that means, we provide the explanation for that and I'll show you in a moment. We also will tell you, well, what does that failure actually mean? Where's the message? Where's the link to the resource? We can go directly there and investigate it. Where are our Azure and AWS tags? Can we do reports based on this? We absolutely can. And then there's a bunch of customization where we can start to tailor the rules to suit our environment. We can start to do things like remove false positives and then also start to change rule severity and so on, really to suit our internal control set and posture. But if we click on resolve, this is actually going to take you to our knowledge base, which is one of the most, I would say, the biggest values of the Conformity solution is, again, we don't just provide that visibility, but we actually use it as an education and training platform. One, to tell you, well, what does this best practice actually mean? What's the risk level and why is it something we should care about? We provide all that rationale here, and then we tell you which pillar of that well-architected framework for AWS and Azure that it aligns to. And then using the console, the command line interface, we provide those very simple audit steps so you can validate that this is in fact an issue in our environment. And then once we've done that, what's really powerful is we provide those remediation guides as well. And we have this for all 700 plus controls, meaning you don't actually need to have cloud security experts in your workforce today. And you're using this to bridge that gap and ensure that you can start to take advantages of cloud without worrying too much about, I guess, the level of competency within the organization. In addition to this, what we also see customers doing within hours, essentially, of turning the tool on for the first time, is starting to use it for its compliance reporting capability. And so if we click on view by standard or framework, what we can start to see are just some of the compliance standards that we can run in our environment. So if we look at NIST cybersecurity framework as an example for those, I guess, security folks on the call today, we're going to provide initially that executive summary of the pass-fail rate. And then what we do aligned to that NIST cybersecurity framework assessment. If you pop open the control, you can see the individual resources that are passing or failing against that control, the individual rules, and then the individual resources, again, with all that customization available. Customers will typically generate these reports from day one, set them to run at a regular cadence. So then what they can do is track their improvements over time. So any auditors that are coming in, they can demonstrate, even if they're non-compliant today, they can demonstrate the improvements they've been making over the last 3, 6, 12, 18-month period. Now, the third thing customers usually start to do is then start to set up the communication channels. And I'll just show you a few of those now. So, one moment, guys. And what this is about, it's about really making sure that this integrates with ease into our own environment, into our own tooling. We don't want just another dashboard to go to. So if we like the power that this solution provides, this is how we make it more extensible and bring it into our, like we said, our current systems. We see a lot of customers using things like Microsoft Teams. And this is, again, now about taking advantage of automation. So we might say, let's set up a high security channel. So anything that's extreme, very high, and a security risk, we want to hear about. You're going to log into Microsoft Teams here, and then the alert's going to get sent directly to that Microsoft Teams channel as soon as that failure is introduced. That alert's also going to have the remediation guide in there as well. So it's very easy for the person receiving that alert to go and perform the fix. Now, for the developers and the engineers on the call today, there's also a really strong API capability. So typically what we recommend is, sign up, have a look at the dashboard, look at the reports, use that for your management reporting and so on, and use the alerts to begin to take action. But as you start to operationalize the tool, it's very much about using the API and integrating this directly into the CI/CD build pipeline. And there's a couple of ways that we can do this. So one thing I'm going to show you here is our CloudFormation template scanner. So this is where we're scanning templates pre-code, pre-deployment, and we're also building our Terraform soon as well. What we can also do, and guys, let me just show you what this looks like. Go to the ELB, here we go. This is just a very basic template, but you can see the output that it provides. So again, scanning code pre-deployment, and then scanning once deployed. And we can do this, as you can see in the UI, but more importantly, we can do this directly via the API. And one final use case I'll talk about is automation, and specifically auto remediation of failures being introduced into the environment. So typically what we see is our more mature customers, once they've started to embed the tool, they want to see, well, how can we remove the effort on my team from going and doing the investigation and fixing the misconfigurations. For that, we've got a open source capability, and you can see how it runs here. We have about 50 functions set up already. So if you guys want to test these during any deployment, completely available, and you can absolutely do that and deploy them across your own environments. I guess one final thing I'll say before I pause for any questions is, like we said, it's very easy to get started. In terms of the commercials of the solution, you can actually get started with using the tool in your production environment for as little as $200 per month. Obviously that scales up, but that's the starting point. In addition to that, you can sign up for free for a 14-day trial. So what we recommend for any organization running an Azure or an AWS cloud environment, sign up for free, run a free audit, have a look at your infrastructure estate, give yourself that visibility, look at the misconfigurations that are sitting there, and assess whether that risk is something you can live with. And then, connect with your Blue Turtle or Trend Micro team to discuss getting that set up further. That's it from me, guys, and I will pause for any questions.
Thanks, Leon. Any questions, please paste it in or put it in the Q&A.
So I can see a question that's been posted here. I'll just read it out. So the question was, is it possible to use Trend Micro Conformity solution for hybrid cloud, or is it only related to multi-cloud mode? So this solution is not available for on-prem. Trend Micro does have other solutions that cover a hybrid cloud environment, particularly our workload security or deep security product, which is that agent deployed on the server. But that's definitely a further conversation we can have. But in terms of conformity, this is very much about public cloud infrastructure.
Thank you, Leo. All right, then moving along. Our next our next section will be a panel discussion. So if the panelists can please enable their videos so the customers can see them. All right, so there we go. So I'm gonna start with a first question, and I'm gonna maybe direct this one to Willem and that. So Willem, tell us, what does the future hold for Trend Micro?
Willem, you're on mute.
Sorry, mate. Sorry, thanks. Yeah, Stefan, thanks for that. I think there's some interesting times ahead for Trend, and especially if you look at the cloud adoption in country, how people and organizations is adopting the cloud. But I think furthermore, what one of the slides that Hendrik had up there, the 19% of data breaches was related to cloud misconfiguration. So I think there's some really interesting times ahead for customers to ensure that their cloud environment is 100% secured going forward.
Thanks. Willem, you want to ask a question to maybe Hendrik?
Yeah, just 1 second. Let's get my question up. Hendrik, yeah, maybe if you can expand a bit more on what you were saying earlier about some of the data breaches that you spoke about. What do you see in the market, and what do you see customers doing around those data breaches?
Thank you, Willem. Yes, so as I said, this is be prepared tactics. This is not really be scared tactics. So just as a T's and C's. Folks, what we see, if you go to Black Hat and those type of conferences and you listen to the hackers speak, they all tell you the same thing. It's not if we're going to be breached, it's when we will be breached. So we almost sit in a situation where we think, but if companies like NetBank and all of these big guys have been breached, is this really helping? Are our efforts actually really bringing about real change and real mitigation? So the good news is, yes, it is helping, folks. We've seen that more and more companies are able to detect the adversaries themselves. More and more companies are able to bring about real cost savings when they put the effort and the money where the real risk is. Companies who use things like artificial intelligence and machine learning, as I said earlier on, their cost of a data breach is much, much, much less than those people who did not have it on. So yes, there's some harsh lessons, and it is a tough time ahead. I do think together we are winning, and when we pull together and when we share information, then we can come out of this and not look like the Experience and the NetBanks of this world.
Thank you, Hendrik. Liam, maybe a question for you. You look after quite a big territory for the Cloud Conformity solution. Maybe take us through how have you seen the adoption of Cloud Conformity throughout your territory? Why is customers so excited about Cloud Conformity?
Yeah, thanks, Stefan. It's a good question, right? And we have, I think, when I look across our customer base across, Asia Pacific, Africa, Middle East, obviously it's a vast region with lots of different types of organisations. In terms of the customers that we work with, there's probably a few patterns with, looking at industries. So we have a lot of financial services customers, those that are highly regulated. We have a lot of customers who are digital natives. So clearly they've been in the cloud from day one. So there's typically quite a substantial footprint there. But on top of that, we work with all different types of organizations who are at different levels of maturity within their cloud, I guess on their cloud journey. But where we then sort of start to see patterns is what are the challenges that they're trying to solve? Why are they looking at cloud security posture management solutions? And a lot of that comes down to their understanding of the shared responsibility model that obviously the major cloud providers put in place and try to educate their customers on. But as they start to navigate that world, they start to look at things like, well, do we have the current level of visibility to feel assured in the environment that we have today? Typically, that's no. They then start to think, well, do we have the governance and control in place to ensure that we can manage the risks within our environment? Again, that's a no, right? And that's what goes to that shadow IT stuff that sort of Ian was talking about as well. The third area would be around risk and compliance issues. So how can we automate our compliance needs, reduce the cost of having third parties come in? This is where this type of solution, as you saw in the demonstration, can obviously start to add additional value. And two other areas I would say that are consistent within organizations, and I touched on in the demo, is really a lack of cloud skills and knowledge within their organizations. We know it's hard to train, it's hard to retain staff. So that's why that value prop of the Conformity solution there is so strong. And then the final one is probably, most, if not all of these organizations that we work with, cloud security isn't their core business. We've seen organizations attempt to build their own type of conformity within their environments, to differing levels of success. But what we found is once they've realized the amount of time and investment that needs to go in for them to build that type of capability when, they're a retailer or they're a bank, the cost to leverage a already pre-baked third-party solution almost becomes a no-brainer. So they're looking for that cloud security practice out of the box. So I hope that sort of helps. I maybe spoke for too long there, but there's definitely some patterns we see with our customers.
No, it's great. Thank you. Ian, over to you. You've made a strategic decision to go with Trend. I know you spoke a little bit about it in your session, but can you maybe elaborate a little bit on why you've looked at Trend as one of the key players to secure your environment?
Okay. Yeah, no, with the greatest of pleasure. I love telling the story. So it's going to take a couple of minutes. I do apologize for that. It's when I took over and this is another SBV story, so it's been publicized, so I'll talk about it. When I took over as CISO at SBV, new broom, new technologies, new everything. And the guy said, listen, let's try this antivirus. So we did. Epic fail. Then I contacted my mates and said, listen, guys, I'm in deep. I'm going to have the shortest tenure of any CISO ever. It's like going to be a couple of days. I'm going to get fired. And the first guys who came to the party was Trend. And they came in with a big team. They helped me fight the fire. And I'll be honest when I say that 5 years ago, I wouldn't have given Trend a second thought. Today, if you tell me that, if you offer me a job and you say that you're running one of those other brands, not going to take the job because I'm going to be in serious trouble. The fact of the matter is that the technology works. The constant evolution in the technology is something that, from a CISO's perspective, is what we're looking for. I don't want stagnant technology. I don't want people who are only dropping kit and only starting to do new things when they're trying to play catch up with the rest of the market. So I'm not interested in that. I'm looking for a company and for passion in the organization and what the people are busy with. If there's passion in your industry, if there's passion in your work, it reflects in your product. And in the Trend product stack, I run a massive estate of these things. And I've been fortunate enough that Trend asked me to speak at the Miami conference. I did a couple of interviews for them and so on. And it's because these things work. You don't need to have a rocket scientist on staff to make it set up. You pay Trend extra, they do it for you. The new technology, the XDR technology and the managed XDR technology, I mean, it takes your endpoint and your network from a network to a fully managed, I almost want to say SIEM SOC solution, managed by Trend. The guys who built the technology will provide you the management infrastructure in the back end. And depending on how far you want to go down that rabbit hole, you can go to full orchestration as well. But it's on the Trend stack. So it removes a lot of your worry. I can tell you I'm on the XDR journey. I'm on Cloud Conformity journey. I have moved a lot of my infrastructure from on-prem to in the cloud. The AI technology that backs us up is unbelievable. And then obviously, talk about shameless bunting, you guys are my partners. So when you look at that ecosystem that I've got and where I've been and the issues we had and where we are now, that quantum shift that occurred, that's the bit that differentiates the market. You can buy any application off a shelf, anything. Okay, you can install it, configure it, switch it on.
Yeah.
But when it goes pear-shaped,
So the one that I'm seeing there,
that's where Trend comes in. That's where Blue
I will
Turtle
just
comes
check
in.
if only why the full cost isn't fine. So
Thanks, Ian. Liam, maybe another one for you. Has Cloud Conformity ever ran a POV that has not highlighted serious cloud security issues at those customers where you were doing the POV, and did it highlight serious issues that they never knew they had?
Yeah, good question. Look, I think serious issues is probably contextual to each organization. Look, more often than not, we see extreme, very high and high risks in customers' environments all the time. I've never seen an organization run a POV and not see anything that was at least high risk, and not just one or two issues. We're talking about quite serious volume. And I think a lot of that comes down to organizations' understanding of why they're risks. So the tool does a lot in itself, but the tool can only do so much, right? It's about people, it's about process, and it's about the technology. And where our team comes in really nicely is we obviously provide the tool that does the automation, but we have a whole wealth of resources, which Ian had referred to as well, to ensure that you guys can bed in the right processes and have the right people on the journey as well. So yes, we always see lots of failures. It's subjective in terms of what that risk rating is, and we're there to work with customers during that process when we identify them.
Great stuff. Last question, Willem, coming to you. We've seen that Trend has been known in the endpoint space for quite a number of years as one of the Gartner leaders. What else is coming out, and what else can we look out for coming from Trend, in general?
Yes, nice. Thanks, Stefan. If you look at sort of where, about 10 odd years ago, Trend decided, sort of hedged the bets on cloud and all the things that we've done around cloud. We've now started to see quite a lot of additional products happening on the cloud space. If you look at our Cloud One product stack, so Conformity is one, that's 6-7 product that form part of the Cloud One stack, of which Conformity is one. There's some really interesting products out there that help customers in their cloud journey. The next avenue where Trent is betting on is the sort of your OT environment, having a look at that environment that is sort of air gap, to ensure that is properly protected from any malicious activity. So I think those are the two areas where Trent is focusing a lot of activities. But don't forget the XDR launch that was just done recently. And there's a lot of attention on the XDR side where we're not only looking at endpoint, but we're looking at the email side, we're looking at the network side, and we're looking at the cloud side to give you a holistic view from your environment, what's happening within a customer's environment. So I think overall there's a lot of products and a lot of technology that's new from Trend coming out. But yeah, watch the space. There's some interesting stuff coming further down the line.
Great stuff. Thank you so much. Liam, one last question popped out. How does Conformity differentiate itself from what's available natively from the hyperscalers?
Yeah, this is probably warrants more than a sort of 30-second response. There's a lot of native, whether you're looking at Azure with Security Center and so on, or Azure Advisor, whether you're looking at AWS in terms of Guard Duty Inspector, config, there's a lot, right? But in terms of what Conformity will do, it'll sit as that central dashboard, pulling through all of those insights. So as I mentioned, we don't just do our own rules. We bring through all of those insights that those native tools provide. We also do it in real time. And we also provide all those really easy workflows that I showed in terms of how do we actually extract those alerts. We provide lots and lots of different compliance reports out of the box. We won't charge you to do the additional compliance checks. We have 13 standards across the AWS environment today. That's all pre-baked in. Yeah, we don't charge additional per compliance report. So everything's pre-packaged, it's set, and we're continually building on that going forward. And as I said, it's that sort of central dashboard where we can bring insights from both platforms into, and it's a lot richer in terms of that depth at that infrastructure layer. Like I said, could probably go into this in a lot more detail and take different customers through different use cases based on their specific requirements and tooling that they're using today. But there's a lot more additional value that our customers get than just from the native stuff.
Magic, thank you, sir. All right, we're almost at the end of our session, but we have one last great speaker to join us. And I'm going to hand over to Yash Pillay from Trend Micro. He's one of the senior technical team members at Trend Micro. So Yash, over to you, my friend.
Let me first make sure that I unmute myself. I think that has been the saying for 2020, is that you're on mute. But for those that don't know me, my name is Yash Pillay. I'm a senior sales engineer at Trend Micro. I probably got the easiest job today. So yeah, firstly, thanks to the speakers today in terms of sharing their knowledge across the cloud. Some of the topics that we've had discussed today have really been very insightful. What I'd like to do in close to closing is just inform the attendees and the customers out there that Conformity is available for them to try at no additional cost. We've got a 14-day trial, but just over and above just what the trial offers, as Leah mentioned, the ability to have that instant visibility into your cloud, and that's a multi-cloud, so AWS as well as Azure, and any changes that you make from a compliance, from a configuration point of view, will be immediately shown up within your dashboard. And then the value of the product, especially around the journey that we have within the cloud, the knowledge-based articles that we have around remediation really comes into play. Over and above just being able to fix the problem, you're also extensively teaching your junior technicians. So just some more detail around the actual trial itself. If you'd like to sign up for a trial, please go to conformity.com, identity, sign up. So it's as easy as clicking on that link, filling in your details, and then you'll have access to a 14-day trial. If you'd like to extend that trial to up to 60 days, please do reach out to myself or Hendrik. Our emails are shared on this slide. And we're more than happy to take you through the actual platform, show you how it works, and kind of give you the ins and outs of the platform. So very short and sweet from my side. Back to you, Stefan. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Yash. Yeah, so we're also going to be sending out a post questionnaire. So after the webinar closes, and obviously be one of the first 10 delegates to complete the survey and stand a chance to one of these nice earphones that's up for grabs. So please watch out for that survey that will come to you after the seminar closes. Now with that, I think it's great. I'm going to just maybe go one slide back. And, you know, as Jas said, the Cloud Conformity solution is up for you to POV and have a look at. I'm going to leave the email addresses up on the screen. So please, after the seminar, please make sure, you know, that you guys contact Hendrik or Yash, and, you know, get in contact with them to schedule your trial, or your, we can even do a presentation or a demo to you. So please reach out to either Hendrik or Yash after the session as well. So with that, I think we're going to close this webinar for today. I want to thank everyone. I want to thank our panelists, Liam, Willem, Hendrik, and Ian for joining us, and Yash for joining us today, and providing some good insight into what's happening out in the world today. So to our customers that's taken the time off this morning, thank you very much for joining us in partnership, Blue Turtle and Trent. It was great having you on our webinar this morning. So without further ado, I'm going to close off the webinar. Thank you very much. Have a great day and stay safe out there. Thank you very much.